Paramania Radio. And now, your host, Alan Cox.
Hello, and welcome once more to Understanding Spirit on the Paramania Radio Network. Technical difficulties stopped us coming on air on time, but we are here now. And we've had a strange day. It's been really hot, then it's been almost cold, and then it's been overcast. Then we've had rain, and now at 9:30 in the evening, we've got the sun out. So that's what it's like to be in England. Anyway, there's the weekly weather forecast. So my special, and I mean special guest this week, is one remarkable, lovely lady who, how can I say, if everybody was like this in the world would be a fantastic place. So without further ado, let me say hi to Jillian Haslam. Hello, Jill.
Hi, Alan. Thank you so much for having me on the show today.
Oh, no, seriously, the pleasure is all mine, Jill. Absolutely great.
Thank you.
Now, for people who don't know about Jillian, Jill's story is just one of the most incredible stories of life that I think I've ever known. Being born to English parents in India through tragic circumstances, ended up living in, the only way you can describe it, I suppose, is squalor, lucky to have survived, 12 siblings, 4 that didn't make it, and basically has made an incredible life for herself and devoted her life to helping others in India who are in that desperate situation. So I know that's only a very brief resume of what you've gone through, Jill, but I'll bring it over to you, whatever you feel that is the right thing to say, but a little bit of background I think would be good, if you don't mind.
Oh, not at all. It'll be a pleasure, Alan. Well, yes, my father was actually born in India at the time of the British Raj, and he worked with the British Army. His parents on both sides were British, and my mother had a Scottish father and an Armenian mother. And so they were born in India, and all of us were, at the time of India getting her independence. And in 1947, the British were given 1 year in which to leave the country. And hundreds of families returned, and my dad's sister actually returned with all her children to the UK. But many families decided to stay on because they had great lives, lots of servants, a really nice life, and of course, much better weather than what we have here.
Yeah.
And my dad was one of those people who made that decision to stay on. But unfortunately, it was a decision that changed the course of our lives forever. And after India got her independence, there were no jobs. He couldn't find work, just like very many other people around. They were reduced to absolutely nothing. And as you know, is depicted on the cover of my book, Indian English, we were reduced to, at first, we were living behind people's houses, under their stairs, in their verandas, and sometimes they kept us for 2 days, sometimes they kept us for 3 days, and sometimes they felt sorry and kept us for a week, and sometimes they asked us to just move on. And our first home, as far back as I can remember, was under a flight of stairs where about 2 feet away, people, washed their clothes, bathed their children, had baths, just about did everything. It was like a communal area. And our second home was in a proper slum, which was in a room probably 8 by 10 feet. And it was so bad, the living conditions that there was hardly any electricity, there were no sanitary conditions. We had to fill water from a tube well, and we shared probably 3,000 people probably shared 3 toilets. It was that bad.
I know you show me a picture of that, and
yes.
It's just unbelievable, Jill. Yeah.
Yeah.
But was it a case because there was so many people in the same kind of situation that it kind of became like some kind of normality? Does that make any sense?
Oh yeah, a lot of it, Alan. I mean, look, at the end of the day, you just have to accept what you have, and you just have to try and do the best you have with the cards you've been dealt in life. And so we just grew up in that. And I do remember, as I said on one of my speeches on TED, that my father actually asked us not to mix with the locals, because obviously they were, so many men in the area, and we were all girl children except for one little brother. And my father was just so afraid that anything could happen to us. But we had a choice, and we had to mix with the locals, and we had to befriend them, and we just had to, do the best we could. Because, as again, one of the chapters in my book is, it's a local tea shop that actually saved the life of my sister, and who gave us milk every day, that literally saved her life. And they were the poor vegetable woman by the corner who used to save all her bad potatoes and tomatoes for us. We used to collect it every day and cook that. And we had a local pharmacy or a chemist who used to give us medicines, and a local grocery store who gave us, rice and tea and whatever it is. And they hardly ever took any money from us. There was a meat man by the corner. He's still there today. And he used to save all the bones for us, and we used to bring that home and make soup. And that's literally how we survived. It's the poorest of the poor who had nothing to give, but yet they gave it all.
When you came to our house, Jill, and you told us about that, and the one part of what you said really hit a chord about your sister Susan, who you've just come back from visiting in Australia.
Yeah.
How she was badly burnt, and you ran to the chemist, and he gave you out of date medicines to help her.
Yes, there's actually a speech that I did at Toastmasters talking on just resilience and mental resilience, and from little girls how we developed this kind of resilience to deal with pretty much any situation that came our way. So that's why today we don't get as affected as a normal girl or a boy would get affected. We can pretty much deal with anything. But yes, we faced some very difficult circumstances, with Susan getting burned, with her almost dying after being brought home from the hospital after 3 days. We also faced Vanessa falling into an open manhole and almost dying. We faced being bitten by dogs. We lived through it all, really.
Yes.
Through it all. I was locked up by a lady when we got very ill from living under the stairs. My mom put us with a lady, a very old, elderly lady, and she said to my mom, "Don't worry, I'll look after the 2 little girls for you." And my mom was very, very grateful to her. And she actually developed this dislike for me, and she loved Vanessa for whatever reasons. Vanessa was very pretty and very fair, very blonde, and all of that, and I wasn't. And so she loved Vanessa, and she didn't like me. And so every evening at about 7 o'clock, she would take me down to the toilet, and this was a little toilet about 2 feet by probably 3 feet, and an Indian style toilet. And she would open. And one day when I was doing my homework, she realized that I was very scared of cockroaches, and there was this big cockroach flying, walking across the floor. And she used to take me down to this toilet, open the door, and show me that the toilet was filled with hundreds of flying cockroaches. And every day she would put me into this toilet and close the door and put off the light. And she did this for months and months on end to me, till I became so traumatized that even if it was late afternoon or morning, and if it was a rainy day, and if it was dark, I used to just wet my pants, because I was so scared that it was night and that it would be time for her to put me into that toilet.
That is
And my mom, whenever she visited, she used to always say, I hope you'll are being polite, and I hope you'll are using your manners, and I hope you'll are being grateful. So we never got a word in to tell my mom what was happening, until one day my mom just saw me absolutely traumatized. I couldn't take any more of it. And she said, okay, pack your things, we are going. We walked going right back to living under the steps. But I can tell you, Alan, it was the happiest day of my life to go back to living under those steps, just because I was away from that toilet.
How far away were the steps from this woman's place? Was it some distance, or were you?
Very far, very far. We really had to walk a lot, because we had no money even to take a tram or a bus or anything.
I'm with you.
And but Vanessa and myself ran and skipped all the way long. And my mom, we were kind of joking about the old lady, and my mom kept telling us gratitude before everything. She's fed you, she's looked after, so let's watch the mouth and let's be grateful. But we were too little, and we were so excited to just get away from that, especially me. So we still talk about that till this day.
I tell you what I found, I'm not trying to, shall we say, jump you forward, but you're talking about that woman. It came to transpire that you actually ended up looking after her, didn't you?
Yes, yes, I know. Ironically, yes. When we moved to the slum in Kidapo, there was an aged home near us, the Mary Cooper home. And we used to, from very little, my mom was very, very charitable. And whatever little pocket money we used to get, like 1 rupee each, we used to run to the store and buy a bottle of jam and a loaf of bread, and run to the aged home and put 1 slice of bread out on all of their laps and give them 1 spoon of jam each, because they never used to get anything. And we used to have, we used to find great joy in sharing everything and giving them all that we could. And then suddenly one day when we went there, we saw Mrs. Cleophas there. She had been admitted, but she was senile by then, and she couldn't remember who we were. But we used to comb her hair and wipe her down and read stories to her and hold her hand and all of that. And we told my mom that she was there, and my mom said, well, you better look after her, because she looked after you all once upon a time. And it was very funny, because she used to hold us as though she knew us, but at the same time we knew that she wasn't there. But it was very, very nice for us to be able to say thank you to her, whether she knew us or not. And that's what my mom really loved about the whole thing, that we managed to meet her again.
Yes. So, was it a case of, well, okay, this is what life is like? Did you ever, at a time when you were growing up, think, surely there's got to be more to life? Or was it just a case of, well, this is my life, and okay, you said you deal with it, but there must have been, was there glimpses of, well, things can be better? What was it like in a child's mind? That's what I'm trying to get at.
Well, it's a great question, Alan. There was a time when Susan was brought home from the hospital, and we had already lost 4 siblings, 2 sisters, Carol, Minnie, and twins, Kimberly and Alan, to poverty, malnutrition, and starvation. And we lost them all before the ages of 6 months.
Right.
And Susan was the 5th sibling who was brought home, and my mom placed her on the bed and said that the doctors have given her 3 days to live and she isn't going to make it. So just let's, be nice to her or whatever. And that's the time I ran to the tea shop and got the milk, etc. But it truly felt that the world had given up on us, the country had given up on us, and for sure the doctor had given up on us as well. We never had access to any internet. We didn't know what existed in the world outside. We had no idea, what other children had or what they didn't have, or, what is it that we could ever, get in our lives. But I did know one thing at that time, that this had to end and that some of us or one of us had to do something about it. My parents had, in a way, accepted their fate and had, kind of, they didn't have the money to get the documents that we required to come back to the UK.
Yeah.
They were literally struggling and we were living from hand to mouth. But as little as I was, I did have a thought that one of us have got to do something. And today I realize that, that the only way to change your life is when you refuse to accept the circumstances in which you find yourself.
Yes.
If you accept the circumstances in which you find yourself, then, you'll just carry on going down that road. But if you refuse to accept it, there is a way out,
What about education? What happened there? Because I'm seriously, I'm not being what's the word? I can't think of the word at the moment. But you're a very intelligent lady, and you know so many things, and you've proven yourself to be very well educated. Yet here you are in a situation where it seems almost impossible to get an education.
No, Alan, on the contrary, we were very, very fortunate, because even now in Calcutta, there are very many schools, and at that time there were many schools as well that were run by the British for the children of British Army officers and things like that. We were given first preference, and we had at that time a principal named Mr. Cameron, and he also was of British origin. And my mom tried several schools to try and get us in, but obviously we couldn't afford the fees, we couldn't afford anything. And Mr. Cameron actually took us in with no questions asked. My parents never paid anything throughout our careers in school. They never had to pay a single rupee. And all of us were educated absolutely free of cost from that school, which actually is one of the top schools even today. So we were very, very, very fortunate to get that education. We were in boarding school most of the time, and it's only towards the end that, when the little ones were born, Neil and Susan, that my mom started to keep me home from school because somebody had to help her with the little ones. And she unfortunately got ill very, very early in life, and she got cancer because she basically sacrificed her life for us. She hardly ate anything at all. And, Vanessa and myself still have clear memories of us, as little as we were, maybe 3 or 4 at the time, when we were living under the steps. She used to bring a little bowl home, or home like under the steps, with one piece of meat and a little gravy and one, like a roti, like a tortilla wrap. And she used to say, eat this up. And we used to say, what about you, Mom? And she used to say, my friends have fed me so much, I can't possibly have another mouthful. But she hadn't eaten anything at all. And she literally starved herself her entire life for all of us. And while we were living under the steps, the ladies who gave us the place under the steps were 2 sisters. They were living in the rooms above us, and they used to make my mom do all the work and everything, and we've literally seen her being beaten and things like that with no food at all. So she literally gave up her life to save ours. And so, yeah, she lost her life at a very young age as well.
What a
So,
remarkable lady. It's
yes, Alan, and that's why I've denoted a full chapter in my book just to her, and I've said, I've called it Homage to a Noble Fighter, because she was indeed a fighter. I mean, she's the most remarkable woman I know.
And your dad, he was taken seriously ill, wasn't he, as well? He wasn't able to help.
Yes, my dad, unfortunately, I think a part of it had a lot to do, obviously, because he served in the army for quite a while. He went to Iraq, Iran, and Egypt, and traveled all over the place. So that played a big role. And then when I think what my mom seemed to tell us is that losing one child after the other hurt them pretty badly. And I remember when we were in Dum Dum, the two girls, Carol and Minnie, actually died before I was born. And then the twins, then I was born, and Vanessa, who is alive today and is a teacher. But
Yes.
soon after Vanessa was born, twins were born, Kimberly and Alan. And they were very little, and we were living, as I said, behind people's houses, under their stairs, etc. And a very nice gentleman offered my parents a break and a job in a school in a place just out of Calcutta called Dum Dum. It was a little school to teach English to kids. And my parents jumped at the opportunity and said, well, let's go, we at least get a job there and whatever. And when we moved there, that's when they lost the twins. And both the twins died one after the other. And because there were no cemeteries and nothing, there was nowhere to bury them, they were literally buried in tea leaf boxes. And if you go to the site I have on the book, which is called Indian English thebook.com, you'll see the trailer of the movie and the book on there, and it's literally in those tea leaf boxes that the twins were buried in. And my dad had to just go with the villagers with those tea leaf boxes, and he couldn't take my mom, he couldn't take anyone, and he had to just put them somewhere. And my mom kept asking him, where have you put the twins? Are they okay? But till the day his eyes closed, he never disclosed what he did with them or where he put them. And I think that was a breaking point for them. Because as little as we were, I do remember my mom crying, and when I saw myself saying, Mom, are you crying? And she was like, no, I've just got a cold. Don't worry, I'm okay. But it was very, very hard for them. And then soon after the twins died, there was a kidnap arranged for my elder sister by the Naxalites of that area. And a villager told my parents that there's a kidnap arranged for your elder daughter. And my father was like, okay, so we'll send her back to Calcutta. And the villager said to my parents, you can't do that, because if you send her back, they'll take the other two. That's myself and Vanessa. You can't do that. You'll all have to go. So in the dead of night, just like the One Trap family, except that we were very poor, we had to leave home and house and just leave in the clothes we stood in and leave that place and get on a train and get to Calcutta.
Can I just ask, why was there going to be a kidnapping? Because with a family so poor, obviously it couldn't be for money, could it? So
no, Alan, it was because we were probably the only Christian family in the area.
I'm with you.
Donna was very fair, very blonde, blue eyes, and very different looking. They just wanted her because she was a girl and a different looking girl, not because of any money or anything like that.
Yes.
So my father was tipped off. And the villagers actually were very nice, but we had to be very, very careful how we handled the matter, because if not, we were putting their lives in jeopardy as well.
Yes.
So we had to leave, and we had to come back to Calcutta, and my mom put my sister Donna with some friends. That's when we were traveling back from Dum Dum to Calcutta, where my dad got a second heart attack on the train, and he lost his eyesight, and he almost stepped off the platform.
Wow.
And my mom had to take him, and she took him straight to the Salvation Army, because that's where, ex-army officers, etc., were looked after. And they took him in again, God bless them, and that's why I help them today, with no questions asked. And they took him in, and Vanessa, myself, and my mom moved back to living under the stairs.
It's, you see, I suppose we hear about different things on the news and TV and that, but sometimes things happen and they just happen quickly, or just over, shall we say, a relatively short period of time. But this is something that you and your family had to endure for a long, long time. And I think that's what makes it even more remarkable, how you've come through the other side from this. And on a personal note, I see that you are quite you've got an incredible stamina that keeps you going and forges you onwards. I don't know if that's a fair reflection, of you, but out of all your siblings, it seems that you're perhaps you're the one that's meant to do all this, to bring it to the world's attention of the plight of what goes on in India.
Yeah, and I think, to be honest, Alan, all my siblings are very strong in different ways. They're all incredible human beings. They
Yes.
have all endured a lot, all of us in different ways, and probably mainly the four little ones, so the four of us, so myself, Vanessa, Neil, and Susan, because we were the ones who actually lived under the stairs, mainly lived in the slum. We were the ones that, endured a lot. We were the ones lived in squalor, and, we just grew up in that. So, yeah, we've become very tough. But all of my siblings are tough in different ways.
Yes. But we do have to take a break now, just for a couple of minutes,
Sure.
Jill. So
Sure.
you're listening to Understanding Spirit. I'm Alan Cox. My guest is Jillian Haslam, and we'll be back after this break.
It's fine building jumbo planes or taking a ride on a cosmic train. Switch on summer from a slot machine. Just get what you want to if you want. Yes, you can get anything. I know we've come a long way. We're changing day to day. But tell me, where do the children play? Well, you roll on roads over fresh green grass for your lorry loads, pumping petrol gas. but they just go on, and it seems that you can't get off. Oh, I know we've come a long way, we're changing day to day, but tell me, where do the children play? Sky, scrapers fill the air, but will you keep on building higher till there's no more room up there? Will you make us laugh? Will you make us cry? Will you tell us when to live? Will you tell us when to die? I know we've come a long way, we're changing day to day. Tell me, where do the children play?
If you would like to be kept up to date on upcoming show information and events here on Paramania Radio, then please take the time to click on the like button above the chat room to like our Facebook page, and click on follow to follow us on Twitter. Thank you for listening to Paramania Radio. Welcome to the all-new Paramania Radio.
Don't go by the book. Think like a pirate.
Welcome back to Understanding Spirit on the Paramania Radio Network. My special guest is Jillian Haslam, quite an incredible lady, and it'd be lovely to hear more of your amazing tale of your family, Jill. So,
Thank you.
So your dad's been looked after by the Salvation Army. You've escaped from where you were living with the threat of a kidnap of your eldest sister. So what happens then?
So we made it back to Calcutta, where my dad was living in the Salvation Army. We moved back to living under the stairs. And we just kept living there until my dad got better. And then he found a small room for us in this place called Kidapur, where we lived in a slum. And that's where we lived right up to the time I left the city and moved to Delhi. And we all lived there, all of my siblings and my parents. We all lived in that little room. And that's really where we grew up. And we had some pretty tough times there, but we had some times that we can never forget. So, like I said, the poorest of the poor came to our rescue, and they were the ones who literally saved our lives. When I was just given the True Legend Award in Calcutta in India, and I said to the people on stage that I didn't deserve that award, because I think the poorest of the poor who saved our lives and who save lives every day, they are the people who deserve such awards, not people like me. But at the same time, we faced times where where they would throw chocolate bombs in front of our little room at the time of Diwali. Um, and it was very, very difficult because the passage in front of our room, there's some pictures in my book, which was only about 3 feet, and the room was so tiny. And he used to go to the top of the building and throw the chocolate bombs in front of our room, and the sound was deafening. It was the detonation was terrible. It was like being in a war zone.
Wow.
And the smell of cordite was you couldn't breathe. We used to have to close our little window. We only had a tiny window, but we used to have to close our window. And I remember putting my hands on Susan's ears and sitting with her in my lap, trying to stop the noise. But they would throw these chocolate bombs that would go on for 20 to 30 to 40 minutes non-stop in front of our house. And they didn't do it out of any malice or anything like that. They just did it because they had fun, and they got some personal satisfaction out of doing it. But it's traumatized us to such an extent that today I can't even take a balloon bursting. I'm so frightened of those noises. And then they had another festival called Holi, where we couldn't even step out on the roads. They would throw these water balloons of colored water at our chests and at our heads, at our necks. And it was very painful because they would throw it from high-rise buildings onto us, and it was very, very hard to go out or to do anything because you would just get pelted with those balloons. And it was very, very tough because you would have your clothes soaking wet, but most often, you would get seriously badly hurt by that. But again, it wasn't done with any malice or anything. It was just done because they derived some pleasure out of it. But as much as... Sorry, Alan, go on.
Yeah, no, I was going to say, so really, even though you were born in India, and it's your country in a sense because you're born there, you were really treated as if you were an alien, really, or an alien family, just simply because of the colour of your skin and the colour of your hair. That's about what it came down to, isn't it?
Well, I guess we were different, and Alan, I like to see things positively rather than negatively. That's how we've been brought up, and
yeah.
I think it's just like a fat child would be teased at school, or somebody who's extra tall or extra short, or extra. You could be different, and you would be targeted.
I was bullied at school, so
Yeah,
nothing like what you've gone through, but I do understand what you're saying. Yes.
My dad would always say, look, it's not that, they're looking at you all differently. It's just that we are different. We are a family that look different. We are different. We don't celebrate their festivals. We don't understand it. We eat differently. We dress differently. Your mom wears dresses. We, unfortunately, our circumstances have led us into living in a place where we are, in a way, very, very different. We just don't fit in. So obviously they looked at us as, how come y'all are so different? And I remember when my mom was dying and I had to put her in a free hospital, a hospital in Delhi called Safdarjung Hospital. And I remember I had to queue up for 3 days just to get one little card from a window to get her admitted into that free hospital. And you couldn't get that card without taking the patient with you. So there were sick people all over. There were people crying and howling and crying out with pain. And I had my mom there, but it was the only way I could get her into a hospital. And I recall everyone looking at me like, why are you in this queue? This is for the poorest of the poor. So why are you in this queue? You can afford more, but we couldn't afford more. So we just had to do what we had to do, and we just had to live where we had to live. So we were just different, and so we were targeted. We couldn't help it. And every time we went out on the roads, we were touched by men, and they would try to touch us. They would try to, come near us. It was very, very, very difficult because we were living in an area where obviously it was predominantly men. And every time I used to come home and say to my dad, they behave so inappropriately with us. My dad would always say, "Look, listen to me. If they had the chance to get an education, they wouldn't behave like that. So we have to understand, and we have to be more sympathetic that these poor boys just have not been educated or taught. So if you look at it that way, you won't feel so bad. So don't hold it against them. But sometimes it would get so bad that we would literally be in tears and say, it's awful what they try to do." And my dad would always try to say, "That's not how it is. Try to think of it in another way." So
your mum and dad said there was absolutely incredible people. There's not many people who would be able to say to their children in that way, and I find that quite remarkable, Jill.
No, that's true, Alan. I tell you, most of it, much of it, of what we got through, and our mindsets and how we literally got through what we did, was down to my parents. Because I remember having a boyfriend, and he didn't want to be seen with me. So whenever we used to come out of school, he used to say, "Go the other side, go the other side, please. I can't be seen with you." And I used to come home and say to my dad, "What's wrong with me? Why doesn't he want to be seen with me? Why?" And my dad used to say, "Look, I can sit you down and I can talk to you for 2 days as to why he's so wealthy and why he can't be seen with us because we are poor, or why obviously he's an Indian boy and he can't be seen with a Christian girl. And I can get into all that, but sit down and just listen to this." And he used to play Dolly Parton's song for me, Chicken Every Sunday.
Oh,
that,
yes.
You're just as good as him. So don't, let that get to you. And honestly, Alan, we used to just get the message. He didn't have to explain anything further to us. It was just so brilliantly the way he just taught us to understand that. And, Vanessa and myself were very little, and we used to run to all the local tailor shops in the area, and they used to make trousers and shirts and stuff for men. We used to run under their little machines and gather up all their rags and put it in plastic bags and run home. And my mom used to stitch these patchwork quilts for us and these patchwork coats for us out of those rags. And they used to play Dolly Parton's song, "My Coat of Many Colors."
Yes.
And we never ever felt that we were any less than any other girl out there. We felt that we were as rich as anyone because that's how they taught us,
Yeah. Well, really, you can say, forgetting about the school side of it, you and your sisters really have had one of the most incredible educations that anybody could possibly have, because that old saying about the school of life, and you've certainly been educated in that, haven't you?
Absolutely, Alan. There's no better way to learn than by experience or example. And my parents were the perfect example. And the experiences we grew up with and that we had, and the way we were taught to not just to endure, like I love the saying, I can be changed by my circumstances, but I refuse to be reduced by it. And my parents always instilled that in us, the Maya Angelou saying. And so, they always taught us that, it's not important what's happening today or how poor you are or why you don't have. What's important is what you do grow up to be.
So, at what point, I mean, when you were growing up and you're a young teenager, at what point did you decide or realise what it is you actually wanted to do with your life, or didn't that happen and life just happened?
No, Alan, I think my first mission, I would say, or the only thing I ever wanted was to get out of there and not to accept the circumstances. And I thought, you know, we can't keep losing siblings one after the other. We can't keep dying. You know, we are going to get ill here and we are going to die. There is no other way out. But one of us have to do something. So my aim was that I get out and I get little ones out and I get my family out. And I just made that my mission, that look, we have to change things. We can't continue to accept things, because if you continue to accept what you have, you know, you'll never change anything, you know. And so when I finished school, I went to Delhi and I did a course, and then I got my first little job. And then I remember there was an ad in the newspaper for a job at Bank of America, to work for the CEO. And, you know, in India, that was like working for God, you know, it was such a big job.
Yes.
And I remember going for the interview, and they gave me a paper and a pen at the door, and they said, take a seat. And there were 250 girls in that room. And I thought, for one job, you know, what am I doing
Yes.
here? But I needed the job so badly that, you know, they say when you want something bad enough, you'll get it. And I
How
needed
old were
that
you
job
at the,
so badly.
how old were you at the time?
I was about 21.
Yeah.
And I thought, no, I need this job. I have to get this job. And I took my seat. And of course, I was looking after the two little ones. And my mom was very, very ill at the time. And we came down to 150, and then to 75, and then to 25, and then to 3. And I got selected. And it really changed my life, because that man helped me so much. Of course, he worked me to the bone, and I had
Yeah.
2 jobs, and he was a workaholic, and he knows that. So I'm not afraid to say it.
Yeah, right.
And he knows that. But you know, he endorsed my book. He's still one of the best friends I have, and he was instrumental in helping me to leave the country, helping me to get my parents' certificates from the UK and all the documentation we need. He helped me so much, and that's just because I worked very, very, very hard round the clock for him for 5 consecutive years. And then when I came to the UK, I worked with ABN AMRO and then with RBS. And even with RBS, I worked in the day at the bank, and in the nights I worked on my own business and on my book. And I just had I just had this thought that, you know, I want to prove not just to myself, and not just to my siblings, but I want to prove to every little girl and boy out there in the world, and mainly in India, who absolutely believe that there is no hope at all, that persistence and perseverance is key to your success. And when I go and speak to schools and universities, etc., and I start with the question of, do you believe that you can create the life you want? And I say, put your hands up, you'll get probably 2 hands up out of 1,000 kids. But at the end of the speech, when I say, now do you believe? And every hand goes up. And that is just amazing for me. And that's the message I want to get out.
So, okay. So you're working for the different banks and you're writing your book in the evening and that.
Yeah.
At what point, what actually got you out there in front of people going, hey, this is my story, and you can succeed as well? How did that happen? Because that's a big step to get yourself in an auditorium or wherever and have all the people there. And so how did that actually come about?
You know, Alan, it's going to sound silly what I'm going to say, but the truth is I don't know. I don't
I
have
understand that one.
a clue. I don't know. All I know is that I was determined to succeed. And one fine day, I found a laptop in my lap and I was just typing, and I thought, I don't know how it's happening. I never ever dreamt that I would be an author, or I would write a book, or I'd write a story. It just wasn't me. I was into banking, and I I was leading a very different life. So how all of this came about, even to this day, I cannot answer, appropriately. But I just found myself typing this story and putting it together, and then I finished the book, and one thing led to the other, and then I got so much press attention and media attention, and got called for so many different interviews. And it still doesn't stop. I get called for interviews every day now, and as we've been contacted by production companies to turn the story into a movie, and we still have offers to relaunch the book, and it I do not know, Alan, how all of this came about, but it just happened.
I know how it came about, Jill. It came about because it was meant to come about, and and it doesn't matter how you look at it. That great universal energy that most people call God, has this incredible way of kind of launching us, if we allow that to happen, into a direction that can not only be incredible journey for ourselves, but can actually help so many people. And a story, well, it's not a story, it's your life. I mean, a story just makes it seem like somebody's made something up. But this thing about what you've gone through, and your siblings and your parents have all gone through in your life, how could it not be told all over the world? And even if I know that you make such a difference to so many people's lives, but even if you only made difference to one person's life, that in itself is an incredible achievement. So what you're actually doing for the world is quite monumental. So please don't ever think that it isn't, because you are an incredible person.
Oh, thank you, Alan.
So you worked for the bank. You started then to get all this attention, and then I suppose you then start getting invited to places, and you've literally been all over the world, haven't you? And you've been on that many TV and radio programs.
Yeah. Yes, I have. Actually, Alan, when I was working with Bank of America for the CEO, 1 year into the assignment, I found that the bank had this charity network, and I thought that they were not doing anything with it, and I loved to take it on. So I said to my boss, "Can I take that on?" And he said, "It's very tough, Julian. You have to manage the whole country, and you don't have that kind of time, with my schedule and stuff." And I was like, "Just leave it to me. You give me the two jobs, that's fine. I just want it." And within a year, I won the individual employee award. I won the Chapter of the Year award for Bank of America. I won the Bank of America Star Award. I won 5 awards and brought it back to the country. And I was flown to San Francisco to bring it back to India. And they made me the head of charity for the 4 metropolitan cities in India. And I loved what I did. I worked day and night with the people on the streets and things like that. And I was just at my best when I was doing that kind of work. And so when I came over to the UK, I still joined ABN AMRO, and I still did some charity work on my own, and I started sending money back to India, etc. And then ABN AMRO sold out its division to RBS, and then I got absorbed with RBS, and I still continued the charity work. But then, as I said, I worked with the bank in the day, and by night I wrote my book and I set up my business, and I mainly worked very hard to set up the charity that I have, which is Remedia Trust Foundation. And today we have 5 different teams working across the cities, working with the children. We have 3 study centers for kids who are the kids of bricklayers, and we provide them an education and everything else. We have a team working with the aged, with pensions, medical supplies, for their eyesight, just spending time with them and doing whatever it is we can for the aged. We have a team working with the youth, and we are placing them in jobs, we are training them, we are partnering with hotels and placing them in those areas.
I'm sorry, no, we've
No,
got to go
that's
to we've got to go to another break in a moment. But when
sure.
we come back,
Yeah,
I would love us to talk more about the work that you do in
sure.
India in the
Okay.
last part of it, and also about your. Okay, I'll say your plans for the future. I've said this on my show many times. Mankind has his plans, and then God laughs at them. And what I mean is, we have in our mind what we want to do, but God kind of puts us where He feels we ought to be. But I would like to know what is in your mind about the future. We're going to take a break again now, and in the chat room, there's a lot of people have put all the links to your website and your books and everything. But I will say that go to JillianHaslam.com, JillianHaslam.com. And as you're listening to Jill, you can look at her website at the same time. So we'll take a break and we'll be back after this.
Thank you.
When I am down and oh my soul so weary, when troubles come and my heart burdened be, then I am still and wait here in the silence until you come and sit a while with me. You raise me up so I can stand on mountains. You raise me up to walk on stormy seas. I am strong when I am on your shoulders. You raise me up to more than I can be. I am strong when I am on your shoulders. You raise me up to more than I can be. You raise me up so I can stand on mountains. You raise me up to walk on stormy seas. I am strong when I am on your shoulders.
it, jump and lock it, surf it, scroll it, pose it, click it, cross it, crack it, twitch, update it, name it, read it.
If you want to learn about how paranormal investigators use technology, what we use, and how it works, then check out Tech Time with Brock and Doc every Sunday at 10 p.m. Eastern, 7 p.m. Pacific, only on the Paramania Radio Network. If it's paranormal or something spooky that you want, then this is a show where you will hear all about it. Join Scott Morrow, host of The Fearless Ghost Hunter, every Saturday evening at 9 p.m. Eastern on the Paramania Radio Network. If you would like to be kept up to date on upcoming show information and events here on Paramania Radio, then please take the time to click on the like button above the chat room to like our Facebook page, and click on follow to follow us on Twitter. Thank you for listening to Paramania Radio.
You are listening to Paramania Radio.
Hello and welcome back to Understanding Spirit on the Paramania Radio Network. I'm your host, Alan Cox. My website is calmingthoughts.com, and my brilliant guest this week is Jillian Haslam. Hi Jill, you still there?
I am, Alan.
That's good. Okay. So we've got I'm still trying to get my head around what an incredible life that you've had and are having. So we've got up to the point where now you have decided that you want to, and it's like, I totally understand, compelling that you need to try and help as many people of all ages, but especially the children in India. So what I know you briefly, just before we went to break, said quickly the type of things you do, but how did you go about organising such a thing?
Alan, I think, one has to experience poverty and one has to experience something in life to actually understand what it feels like. And I think for me, and obviously I believe for my siblings as well, but especially for me, we've lived it, and I have endured it, and I have seen it, and I know what it is, not to have, but I know what it is to starve, and I know what it is. Once I made a stew. The meat man gave us some meat, and I started cooking the stew at about 10 o'clock in the morning. And I had Neil and Susan, the little ones, keep asking me, is it ready or not? Is it ready or not? And we had this little tiny stove, kerosene oil stove. And I started cooking it. It was ready by about 4 o'clock in the evening, or maybe later. And eventually when it was ready, I was just so tired of doing all the work and looking after the kids and making that stew, that I brought it into the room and I dropped the whole vessel of the stew on the floor. And the little ones were crying like, you've dropped it after so many hours of cooking it. And we were so hungry that we just picked it all up from the floor and we just ate it.
Wow.
We were in school when we were always so hungry that we had the day scholars, the kids who used to come to school in the morning and go in the evening. And we were boarders, and they used to throw away half a sandwich or half a eaten apple or whatever. And Vanessa and myself used to follow them. And whatever they used to throw away, we used to throw a pencil near it and pretend to pick up a pencil, but we used to pick up the food and run to the toilet and share half and half. We used to be so hungry all the time. And when we used to go home, it was even worse. So, Alan, as Mother Teresa says, we think that poverty is only being hungry, naked, and homeless. But the poverty of being unwanted and uncared for is the greatest poverty of all. And being uncared for, along with hunger and starvation and disease and everything else that we grew up with, actually doesn't only happen with children. It happens with the youth. It happens with the youth who have a schooling and just can't find work. And they have families whom they go back to who are 10 and 12 members, just like we had. We have the aged who have no one to give them anything at all, not even enough money to buy their medicines or buy even little rations every month. We have the disabled who, in a country like India, it's taboo to be disabled. You can't be disabled and be accepted there. You know, you have the little kids who are kids of bricklayers who are lucky to be put at the side of the road and get half a slice of bread a day. You know, wow. So now I'm in a capacity to help, and so we have these 5 teams working across the cities, and to just reach out to as many people as we can, and to all whom we can reach out to, and to try and show them that you're not alone, and you're not uncared for, and you're not unwanted. Because like I said earlier to you, Alan, there was a time when I told you that we believed the world had given up on us, the country had given up on us. It's a very lonely place to be, especially when you're still starving and you don't have, you know. And I remember every Friday queuing up at the Mother Teresa Center. We had a presbytery and we used to queue up. We never missed that queue. And they used to give us 1 bag of clothes and 1 packet of powdered milk and 1 packet of biscuits. Every family got that. And they didn't have time to measure the clothes and say, okay, if this fits, you take it. Every family just got 1 bag each and you were sent off because there were hundreds in the queue. Yeah. And we came home and we had knickers that started at our waist and ended at our ankles because they were granny's knickers. But we were so proud we wore those knickers and toured the whole area because to us, we had knickers. We never ever had that, you know. So when you don't have, you understand what it is not to have, leave alone, you know. When I look at kids here, they cry because they don't get, you know, an iPhone or video games or some expensive toys or, you know, things like that. It's kids in India and kids like in Africa and India, etc. They don't even have 1 meal a day, just like we didn't have. We didn't know what it was to have toys or proms or boyfriends, or we didn't have a childhood. You know, we had some of the greatest friends in boarding school and some happy times there, but very, very different lives, Alan. Yes. So I want to try to spend the rest of my life to show these people who don't have that you're not alone, and that there are people in the world, just like all the teams I work with, who are the most incredible people I know, who work day and night reaching out to these people in need. And I think if all of us in the world come together and just do a little bit, we can eliminate world poverty, we can eliminate sadness. There is a lot of it out there. The only thing is many of us choose not to see it.
That's so true, actually. And I think, you know, it's a strange thing, Jill, because if you look at this world of ours, going through all the centuries, we've gone through such turbulent times, and we are supposed to be now in an educated, almost like sophisticated world with all the technology. Yet, in some ways, with people, we've actually gone backwards, haven't we? And we need to focus on the good in this world. Yes, of course, you've got to fight the bad, but the more people actually focus on what is good about humanity, that is how mankind will benefit and become stronger and together. I don't know if you agree with that.
Oh, I absolutely agree, Alan. Like I said, when I go to schools and universities all over to speak, and I get letters the next day from the principals and the head teachers saying, Jill, after your speech, if you've spoken to the sixth form, then they have gone out and actually done a whole play based on your speech to the whole school. And these children are taking your story very, very seriously. I've had schools write to me. If you look at the Telegraph, they've written saying your story should actually be in every textbook. And I have kids write to me every day, saying, I want to do what you're doing. I want to help to change the world. I want to be able to do things. Just teach me how to do it. So we can create and inspire more kids to do more. We can do that, Alan. It's
Yes.
just that, we are totally focused away from anything that is poor and sad. I was invited to speak at Cambridge University, and I was very saddened when some of the PhD students said to me, Jillian, we were in India, and we were interviewing some of the richest people in India to find out how they started their industries and how they got their wealth and all of that. And many of them turned around and said to us, just don't relate us with poverty. Don't relate us with anything charitable. Yeah, because
Yes.
we don't wish to be associated with that side of things, and that is so sad.
Yes. Can I just, I think I need just to read this out that's in the chat room, Jill, to you. From
Sure.
Kaz, hi Kaz, she's a regular listener of mine, and it's always lovely to have you there. She's put, thank you, Alan, for bringing this inspirational lady on air, and thank you, Jillian, for sharing your story with us all. We are so honoured to have had the opportunity to hear your words. There is a lesson for all of us in these words. I just wanted to share that with you, Jill.
Thank you so much, Cass. I really do appreciate that. Thank you.
Okay. So, as I said earlier, what is your next step? I know you've got the thing with the motion film, the motion picture, but what cries in your soul, in your heart, to achieve for the others? Have you thought of that? What actually pumps in your body what it is you want next?
Alan, I just think that every hour of me not trying to do something and trying to build this initiative and all this teamwork and trying to reach out to more and more and more people and as many as I can is my mission and my goal. I have been blessed with a lot so far in life. I seriously don't need anything else. All I need is, and I've already met so many great people like yourself. And
thank you.
I met the screenwriter Neil, and he's just infatuated with the story, and he wrote the movie script, and that's what won us the award at the Monaco, International Film Festival. And I've met some incredible people, and all I want to do now is to spend every moment trying to inspire kids and the younger ones to understand that there is hope, but it's a DIY. You have got to do it yourself. You have got to persist, and you have got to persevere to make things happen for yourself. And I want to, I've managed to reach hundreds of lives just by my book, just by speaking to them, and just by fan mail or reaching them. But you can imagine, Alan, if it's a movie, and now with the relaunch of the book,
yes,
it's just going to be incredible. They're looking at translating the book into 26 different languages, and if that can happen and it can reach as many a young person, it'll just be amazing. And that's my goal and my mission.
Well, it is going to happen, isn't it? You see, I always I always look on the positive there side, and with all the incredible things that have happened already, this really is just like the next stepping stone, the next stage in what it is you're meant to achieve. And I do see that the world has a lot to be grateful and be thankful for a person like yourself, because every single day there's so much doom and gloom and awful things that you see on our TV screens that's going on around the world. And I think that we have to acknowledge that, and it's got to be dealt with. But there's also the other side of the coin, where there's inspiration and people are doing incredible good things, and you come under that category, Jill.
Thank you so much, Alan. As William Barclay said, that endurance is not just the ability to bear a hard thing, but to turn it into glory. And that's what I want to inspire the young ones to do. That yes, we all have stories to tell. Many of us in the world have endured some hardship or the other, but that's not endurance. Endurance is just not the ability to bear a hard thing, but to be able to turn that into glory, your personal glory. And I think each and every one is capable of doing that, even in a very sick child like Susan, or a dying child. There lies potential, and we need to identify that.
I think what's a lovely thing that our listeners would like to know is that Susan is happily married. They've had their first child, and you've just come back from Australia visiting them, haven't you?
Yes, indeed, Alan. And just to know that Susan wasn't even a child who was expected to live, and then when you say somebody's had a baby, you think, what an incredible time in life. But for Susan to have had Samantha, the little one, and to be married and to be so happy and to have lived through everything, her life, her getting burnt and her illness and everything. And it's just like, it's a miracle to me, because I brought her up, and that's why she's so special to me, and so is Samantha.
That is absolutely wonderful, and to me the message really is that whatever your circumstances are, if you are able to think clearly and to be able to be determined, then you can turn a really bad, negative situation and actually turn it completely on its head and make something of yourself, but also probably just as important, if not more important, to be able to help others, to want to bring people out of that situation and for their full potential. And I know when we was talking the other day, yes, I know your focus is on obviously on children, but you also help people who are older, don't you? From people who perhaps at a point in their life and they think, well, what's left for me? To actually inspire them to do more and to revitalise their life.
Absolutely. We help women in need, Alan, who literally feel that they have no hope at all. Like I said, we help the youth who have certificates from school and are simply walking the streets and just can't find work, and they have no one to help them, and no money and nowhere to turn. And of course, we help the aged, and some of the aged we help are 100 years old or over, but they need care and love too. And as far as the kids are concerned, there's this great book by W. Mitchell Allen, and it's called "It's Not What Happens to You, but It's What You Do About It." And that's an incredible book, and I think that that's what we need to focus on. And people need to understand that it's exactly what you do about what you're dealt with. It's not important what happens to you, but how you deal with it and come through it.
Yes, I do agree. So how is the best way if people want to know more about you, and if they want to send you a message, what's the best way?
Alan, the best way is to go to my main site, which is www.jillianhaslam.com, which is with a J. And there's the whole story on the book site, which is www.indianenglishthebook.com. And everything to do about all the charity work we do and all the videos, the photographs, meet the teams, everything is on www.remediatrustfoundation.com. And you can pretty much find all my interviews, television interviews, radio interviews, press articles, and all my contact details are also on any of those sites.
And also, if anybody feels the need that they want to make a donation to the charity, what's the best way that they can do that?
They can either go to www.remediatrustfoundation.com, or they can just write to me directly, and I will provide them with all the details they need. But there's a donation button on the site itself, which they can feel free to use, or they can write to me. And I always give people the option to tell me what is it they'd like to donate towards, whether women, children, the youth, the aged, and what is it they'd like their money to be put to, what use they'd like their money to be put towards. And I will use it, and will keep them updated on everything that we do.
Thank you. We're almost out of time, but just to share with you what people are saying in the chat room. David Parry, my good friends, put a groundbreaking show, and that's all down to you, Jillian, not me.
Not at all, Alan. Thank you so much, but it takes two always, so thank you.
And also, Kaz is saying that we're going to share this podcast everywhere possible. What's it available? So you've made a big impression. Your story is just so incredible, and you're incredible. And I'm so glad that to have you as our friend Jill. So yeah, unfortunately the time has beaten us, so we have to say good night for now. And as I say, every Thursday night it's time for me to go and lie down in a darkened room because it is nearly 11 o'clock. So anyway, from Jillian Haslam and from myself, thank you very much indeed for listening and being out there in internet land, and I'll see you soon. Bye for now.
Thank you all. Thank you. I'm very grateful. Thank you.
Pleasure.
Where did we come from? Why are we here? Where do we go when we die? What lies beyond and what lay before? Is anything certain in life? They say life is too short, the here and the now, and you're only given one shot. But could there be more? Have I lived before? Or could this be all that we've got? If I died tomorrow, I'd be alright, because I believe that after we're gone, the spirit carries on.
Thank you for listening to Understanding Spirit. Tune in next week, Thursday, at 9 p.m. British Summer Time, 4 p.m. Eastern, here on the Paramania Radio Network.